Hello friends, thanks for joining me and welcome to our living room. And more importantly, the view from our living room. Just check this out, it's such a good view, we're so lucky to have it. You can see the sea, the whole town, the mountains in the distance, the monument, next door neighbour's car, the sun coming up and the sun setting, and even the postman delivering letters. This video is about making a suitably delicious, upcycled, fold-down breakfast bar area from oak. Somewhere where we can sit and contemplate the deeper meanings of existence and eat breakfast. Let's talk about what's involved. One of the first things is to get rid of this ginormous radiator. It's way oversized for the room, and there's another one in the room that we're going to switch to a double radiator instead of a single. Now, I'm going to guess that most of you watching have a mild but not overpowering interest in the plumbing here, so I'll just sketch out how we remove the radiator. Essentially it involves draining the system, so all I'm doing here is raising the back end of the radiator so it can drain out this front bit. All that's done with the valves all open, including the bleed valve. After that, I shut all the valves so remaining water in the radiator stays in, and then I can remove these pipes. After that, a miracle happened, and we removed the radiator without black gunky water actually spilling all over the carpet. That just left these pipes to cap off, push below the level of the floorboards so they're nicely out of the way. And here I'm just cutting them off with one of those pipe slice spinny things that you spin around. That was all going well, then there was a bit of an incident with the compression cap off thing actually broke, and the compression nut that squeezes onto the olive snapped. I've never had that happen before, but either way it meant I needed to get this olive off, which was quite awkward, and start again. So I'm just cleaning this up ready for soldering, because that was my last compression fitting in my bag of tricks, so it's going to be soldered now. I prefer solder joints in general, but I was a bit reluctant due to not wanting to set the house on fire. There's not much clearance round this area. It turned out just fine in the end though, and the heat shield did quite a good job. So a bit more complicated than expected, but still they're pushed down below the floorboards. And now we're on to fillering the giant cracks left behind the radiator. That's then just sanded off nice and smooth. And with all that radiator shenanigans out of the way, perhaps it's time for me to give you something of an idea of what we're actually trying to achieve here. Basically, we're looking for a countertop that has some kind of fold up and down wing. What's that you say? You think my drawings were done by my cat? Well, the joke's on you. Really, it was my mouse. So I've been rummaging, and this is what we're coming up with. Got some wormholes around here, and in the bark especially, some big ones, so that on the tree thing. Other than that, I think it's quite a nice bit of wood. Into the thickness of that bit goes. It comes out and looks pretty nice, so that'll do nicely for the fold up wing. So this is the situation, we've got the windowsill is too wide for one board. It's not wide enough for both these boards, which is good because we need to cut off some of this sappy bit here. So we need to cut off sappy bit, straighten the edge so it's ready for jointing. Same with this one. I'm using my long track saw to get a nice straight edge on that board where I'm cutting the sappy bit part off. Planing these long windowsills, I'm really glad for that extension I made for the outfeed table on the planer. And I always check the fit to make sure they're going together nicely. In this case I'm not sure what happened, but I needed to tweak one of them before going on to make these holes for biscuits just for alignment. And as always I'm using my homemade biscuits. Then I noticed an only just perceptible ridge running down these boards, which I planed off. The block plane's quite nice for getting that. It's caused by a nick in the planer blades. And how much glue to spread on joints like this? Well, it does kind of depend on how tightly the joints are fitting, but also how tightly grained the wood is. The general rule of thumb I use is to cover the entire surface. If there's not glue there, you know it's not going to stick. On the other hand, you don't want too much or you're just making a mess and wasting. You kind of want just an even squeeze out all the way along. That way cleanup's super easy and you know you've got it all covered. I don't know what's happening here because I did this up with my hands, so I must have got super weak in the 2 hours it was clamped up somehow. I used to think these Bessies were the best things ever, but that's certainly not the case anymore.
Woodworm fluid. New formulation, low odour, fast drying. But the can's got to fall apart.
If this stuff is a new low odour formulation, I really wouldn't have liked to smell the previous incarnation of this stuff. It's really horrible and it lingers on, so definitely not something to dress up in your best clothes for. So on that fold up wing, so that I don't have to reduce the thickness hugely, I'm just going to plane off this area where we've got some real low spots, and I want to do that so I can join an extra piece of wood along here, and that's going to make up part of the wooden hinge that I'm planning. This battery powered planer didn't come with a fence, but this bodged up kind of version seems to work okay. It's certainly given us a nice straight edge anyway to glue this extra piece of wood on. Glue spreading wise, I've tried loads of different things in the past. The only thing I haven't tried is the roller that seems quite popular, but I've tried everything else. Basically now I'd sort of grab anything that looks vaguely suitable that glue's not going to stick too horribly. Once that's dry, I'm just cutting out some notches now, and this is the beginnings of what will be the hinging mechanism. But before I do much more on that, I just need to square up these edges so the glue join kind of becomes totally uniform. It's always pretty interesting manoeuvring those big boards through. I've just marked off the centre point here to drilling into. Now my whole plan relies on me being able to get this 90 degree and push it in, so I'm pretty pleased that the centre of that there is enough clearance. Encouraged by that proof of concept that this might actually be possible, now I'm making a template jig, and I can make this really nice and accurate and square on the table saw, and that just represents how I want all the kind of divots to be. And then I'm using this top bearing guided router bit just to copy that exact cutout, and then I repeat that process for the other indents. After that I'm just marking up, so I've done the folding shelf bit and now I'm marking on the more windowsill bit all the kind of mating pattern, and then I'm drilling holes and jigsawing that one out just because it was a shame to waste it. It was a nice big bit. The other little bits I do the same thing and then repeat the same deal with the router. Been plenty of jigging and a bit of chiselling, and hopefully we're about there now. Let's have a look. Still a bit tight, but I think that might be okay. I think that's okay, so I just need to sharpen up some of these corners, and now I think we finally got it. I made this little thing here just to try and work it out because my brain's been in noodles. So it looks to me like I could either half round all the underside bits. So it'd be nice if those gaps weren't there when the table was open, but the only way to achieve that would presumably, if that corner's carrying on, would be to divot out something along those lines. Let's put the hinge pin in first anyway, so I'm going to start by making just a straight guiding block. There we go. Which I can use with the drill just clamped in place. I remembered my extra long drill bits. Unfortunately, my extra long drill bits are also extra cheap drill bits, and they just do not drill very well. Somehow we need to get this in here, but in a nice way, so we can go through there. I'm thinking we're going to have to shorten. Let's try that now. With that slightly shorter bit, I was able to get in there, do the same thing with the guiding block, and drill some holes. These are all pilot holes. I really want to use a 10mm pin. But for now, this 6mm pilot hole drill is a good start. So I'm just repeating that process throughout. So I've been looking at my drill bits. I need to expand it to 10mm to be able to get the rods that I've got in. This is one that's ridiculously blunt. But I do have this long SDS masonry drill bit. They have carbide tips. In terms of its trueness, I'm quite impressed, especially as I've used it quite a bit. Bit of the old made in Germany effect there. This is long enough that it would do the whole lot, and maybe we can just grind that tip to more of a normal profile. You'd use diamond, of course, for grinding carbide normally, but I don't have that, so I'm going to see whether I can bodge through, maybe make up for it with the disc sander. I successfully took a fair bit of the grit off the disc and created a sort of fire starting mechanism. And then I remembered that I did have a Dremel diamond burr things, tiny one, and that actually worked quite well. With the pilot hole too, it actually ploughed through nicely. So now I've got those holes, I need a way to actually insert the bars into them, because there is no sort of edge, if you like. So I'm creating this channel down the centre of the fold down leaf part. As you saw, I used the plunge cut saw, and then I'm just using the router to do the end parts. It's pretty tight, as you'd expect, but it seems to work. Let's get started on the relief cut. Okay, now we're on the chiselling trail. These are the bits that are actually going to allow the leaf to pivot. Without these, they're just sort of locked in place. I've got my little tester piece that I use to line up the holes. Just about see that could be certainly be better. Then I'm also rounding over. Okay, I think we're nearly ready to try this out. So we've got our indents, we've got our roundovers, hopefully all in the right place. It never fails to amaze me how crazy messy things get so quickly when you're engrossed in projects. Knocking those bars in, and it does work, sort of. Just need to cut down one of those bars. And then I was all revved up and excited to put that in place, but then it did sort of make sense to do some decorating and painting first. So we got started with that, and by we, I obviously mean Sam on her own. I haven't quite worked it out yet, but for some reason Sam likes watching walls go from one shade of vanilla, not magnolia mind you, to a slightly different shade of vanilla. And I had my own unique sort of purgatory anyway. Mercifully, because I'm using this pretty cool wax oil stuff, I only need to go to 120 grit. Unlike painting a wall, I love watching the grain pop out when I put this stuff on. A day later, when the paint's finally dry, we're about ready to put it in. So I'm just putting some sealant down, squeegeeing it on. This is after a dry test, obviously, and already it's looking pretty damn cool. I've got to say, I love the way it looks there. Here comes the leaf to be fitted with the wooden hinge. I'm just tapping those bars in from the underside. There's the end of one, so it's fully in there. Sam's been holding this up for me in place while I did that. And then it's time just to test it out. What a noise. It's straight out of some kind of cartoon horror film. Strangely, after that first go, we couldn't really replicate that noise. It subdued to more of a serious horror film kind of noise. Either way, I really like it. The astute amongst you will have noticed there's nothing to hold this up at the moment. We're going to have a supporting swing arm, upcycled metal, industrial looking, really cool thing, and that's the subject of next week's video. So hopefully I'll see you for that. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe and see you next time.